Throughout its 75-year-long run, Drag Race has had a couple of instances when there were no eliminated queens in an episode, or, in layman's terms, instances when there were no losers. However, for the first time in Drag Race's history, this week's episode of Drag Race in Drag Race UK Season 3 Episode 5 had no winners. Other than Thailand and Spain, I don't know about the other not judged by RuPaul spin-offs, so if this has happened before on any of the other 17 spin-offs that there are, please excuse my ignorance. So, knowing now that this is a possibility, I couldn't help but wonder, have there been other instances in the show's main franchise, so just RuPaul's Drag Race, where there also shouldn't have been winners? Well, given that I'm making this video now, and you are watching it, yes, I believe that there have been. Today, I was actually supposed to put out my video on why RuPaul's Blame It on the Edit song just logistically makes no sense, but that video will have to wait until next Sunday night, unless, of course, something big happens in the meantime. That video is, of course, inspired by Top RPDR Video's video, but again, you'll have to wait another week for that. So, what is my criteria here for the 5 challenges I picked? Well, knowing how the show operates, what things they commonly award, and what things they commonly, let's say, punish, though that's a little harsh given what the show is, I looked at the instances when the things they usually punished or judged negatively, they just ignored in order to push a certain queen, a certain storyline, or just because maybe they didn't want to not have a winner. Now, I'll be honest. I did this video 80% objectively, 20% subjectively, and I think you'll be able to figure out when the subjectivity will come into play. However, even in those instances, I think that the majority of the audience shares my opinion. The majority doesn't always have to be right, of course, so if you disagree with any of my picks, please do tell me in the comments below. Also, please refrain from posting
you forgot
comments. Those go into held for review section and very quickly get deleted by yours truly. Before we get into the top 5, let me mention 3 challenges that all could have made the list, but did not for one specific reason. These are the honorable, or in this case, dishonorable mentions. The Shakespeare acting challenge from season 7, the Breast World acting challenge from season 10, and the Hinny I Shrunk the Drag Queens acting challenge from season 13. If you haven't noticed, all of these are acting challenges. Now, why do I believe they shouldn't have had winners? Well, for Shakespeare Challenge, Max was the winner that episode. Max won as team captain, which is a frequent thing on Drag Race. The best performing queen in the group challenges may not win, but the leader of the group will. I'm not saying that Max was or was not the best, but Max really only won because, again, she was the team captain. Max's team was not really awful, but let's be real, their skit was not funny either. Drag Race skits are not funny in general, but the 2 we saw in this episode are on another level nonsensical. Flat out boring and unmemorable. Well, other than the infamy aspect of how bad they were. Obviously, there still had to be a winner that week, but that's only because the show's writers wrote the scripts. It wasn't the queens who wrote them. If there had been no winners, while we, the audience, know that there were some good actors and comedians on that season, it would have poorly reflected on the show. More or less similar thing goes for Breast World and Hanny I Shrunk the Kids. The former had horrible writing, where legitimately only one outdated political reference joke personified into a role could have won. And did. While in the latter, the writers wrote the skit around the queen's drag personas, but they made them more abstract. Rosé is the experienced, no-nonsense professional. Olivia plays a dumb child. Gottmik does great as a dumb blonde valley girl. Simone is sassy, and Candy's the villain. They usually criticize when the queens go for a role they feel most comfortable in, or one that's most like them, but this time they couldn't have done that because everyone did that. The main reason why they could get away with not giving anyone a win on Drag Race UK this week was because the queens made the skits themselves. Even though the said skits were no different from any of the skits we've seen on Drag Race. Let's start with the least severe of the 5. In the 5th spot, I put the gayest ball ever. So, why do I think this challenge should have had no winners? Well, for now, as this is just the 5th spot in the ranking, I'll only focus on the High Queen and the winner, those being Sasha Velour and Shea Coulee. Let's see. As this was a ball, the queens had to present 3 looks. 2 they brought from home, meaning 2 that they had the time to prepare and were given more or less clear prompts to work with, and 1 that they had to create in the workroom. The former seems simple enough, don't you think? Well, I would think so, but clearly Shea Coulee was a little confused, as for the rainbow portion of the runway, she walked out in a dress that was, I'm assuming, pooped on by birds, and then the said poop, due to the bird's diet, dried into interesting faded out hints of colors. A rainbow, this was not. So, given that she didn't check the box on just matching the category on this one runway, the win should have been given to Sasha, no? Yeah, I don't think so. While I know that you're going to tell me that it's high art that I, a simpleton, just do not understand, these 2 looks are very basic. You could recreate them at home. That's right, babes. You could dress up as one of Drag Race's strongest winners by spending less than, I don't know, 50 euros at an H&M or a thrift store. For all the reasons I just mentioned, I don't think there should have been a winner in the gayest ball ever. In the 4th place, we have the Face of Cakes episode from season 3. In this particular episode, the queens were all assigned different cakes that they had to create looks for. When I did my official ranking of each cast based on their track records, starting from season 1 up to whatever was the most recent season back then, in order to have a place on the internet where there were valid and shows editing and critiques related arguments about the placements, I lost my mind trying to figure out the middle portion of season 3. More often than not, the winner of an episode wouldn't even get the best critiques. But then you'd go onto Wikipedia or wherever else similar, and they just throw these placements around willy-nilly. The worst offender for this is, as I've said, the 7th episode of season 3. In this episode, no queen overall got the winner of the episode edit. Hell, nobody even got a winner-worthy, majorly positive edit. To make matters worse, Raja, the winner of that episode's challenge, did not even get the best critiques, or at least was not shown as getting the most positive critiques. Everybody that episode got mixed critiques, in varying degrees of course. But then there was also no clear middle. Yara got the best critiques, but still did not win. Raja got the same amount of negative critiques as Delta and Manila, who were also in the top, and Raja still won over the other 3. I wonder why that is. I'm kidding, I know why that is. We all know why that is, but that's not what we're here to talk about. In short, in the judges' and the producers' eyes, there was no clear winner, and thus, there should not have been a winner at all. Let's stay on season 3 for the 3rd spot as well. This time, we're going an episode back, and we're talking about that season's Snatch Game. I'm going to come out and say it. This is, to this day, the worst Snatch Game. In retrospect, compared to all the other Snatch Games, it just doesn't hold up. However, hindsight is 21/25 or whatever. So let's imagine we have just seen season 3 Snatch Game. We can only compare it to season 2 Snatch Game. On season 2, we had 2 great characters in Brittany and Cheryl Canning, done by Tatiana and Bendora Pox, respectively, and a chaotic and iconic RuPaul done by Jessica Wilde. That was the first ever Snatch Game. The queens had no idea how the challenge worked, and yet that Snatch Game still holds up. Season 3 Snatch Game, again, had no winner-worthy performances. If we were to put Stacy or Raja on any other season Snatch Game, they would have been safe at best. Stacy said maybe like 5 things throughout the entire Snatch Game and had no energy. Raja was, well, funny, and definitely funnier than Stacy, very repetitive, even though she did build on top of her joke, but you just always knew what she was going to do. Alexis was maybe the only Snatch Game that could work still, as it's literally just Alexis playing a stereotypical lesbian character that just happens to be named Alicia Keys. Like, that's absurd and funny, but not winner-worthy. I feel like if this Snatch Game happened today, the queens would have been shit on by the judges. And who knows, maybe then there also would not have been a winner. I'm telling you this up front. The top 2 spots here are both from season 11. one of the show's worst seasons, and you can quote me on that. The first, the lesser offender in my book, is the From Farm to Runway episode, in which the queens had to design looks from unconventional materials you may or may not associate with farms, agriculture, and such. Just like I did with the previous 2 spots on this list, let's look at our high group of queens. Plastique Tiara, Brooklyn Heights, and Evie Oddly. Plastique, the episode's winner, did a look and a silhouette that by that point we had seen almost every single week from her. In any regular Drag Race instance, aka when they don't try to push a queen towards the crown, that's something they would have criticized after maybe 2 or 3 episodes. Plastique being set up to win was so apparent that Arcadia and Raja both noticed it, and Raja called out the production in Untucked on spot, which later resulted in Raja, while having a pretty good look all things considered, going home, making the episode even worse judging, logic, and enjoyment-wise. So the winner of the episode was set up to win, and thus, in my eyes, it makes the whole win sour. So should one of the other 2 have won? Well, let's see. Brooklyn Heights, for her look, did not really use unconventional materials, nor did she make something that's structurally complicated. It's a very beautiful look, yes, and it's not mandatory that the queens use unconventional materials, but if they could have criticized Arcadia on being too simple and again, not really using unconventional materials, they should have also judged Brooke for that. Brooke winning for something that Arcadia was put into the bottom 2 for would not have been a good look. And lastly, Evie's look, while not suffering the same logistical fallacies of being put into that top 3 like Plastique and Brooke's looks, compared to their looks, hers just doesn't look as great. It feels like it needs some finishing touches to be on the same level. Now yes, Evie's whole thing is that she's a little edgy with her drag, and that should be celebrated, but it also shouldn't be an excuse. In short, not one of the 3 queens that the show chose as their top 3 for this episode was worthy enough of getting that win, based on what the show presented to us in its entire run up to that point, and even worse, in that same exact episode. And lastly, the challenge that 100% should not have had a winner is the Monster Ball from season 11. Oh my god. Imagine being given one of the coolest possible categories for your looks. That category overall being horror, which in itself is broad as fuck and full of cool references and looks, and you end up with nothing that's worth talking about. The queens had to present 3 looks on the stage, as, well, it's a ball. The first look was called Trampy Trick or Treater, which originally was just sexy Halloween costume. We can all thank my good friend Ariel Versace on sharing that information with us. The second look was called Witch Please, aka just do a witch look. The final look was the look the queens had to create in the workroom, called Milf Eleganza, Monster I'd Like to Freak. With this last look, we can cut the queens some slack, as maybe the materials they were given were not the best. Firstly, our top 3, the same as the top 3 in the last entry on this list, were Brooke, Plastique, and Evie. Let's look at their first looks. Okay, we can say that Brooke's look is kinda a sexy / trampy Halloween costume. It's a sexy mummy, so I'll give her a pass. Plastique did a pretty good job too, but as you know, it's nothing we haven't seen from her like 85 times throughout the season. Lastly, Evie, as much as I think that her presentation on the runway was funny as all hell, this was just not a good look. Again, it's funny, so just because of that, let's say that they all get a pass. Not a, oh wow, this was really well done, but a pass. Their second looks can all get a pass too. There's nothing really wrong with them, but here only Evie is giving us an actual witch look that can even be scary. Their final looks, however, meaning the most important look of the entire ball, just go home. What about Brooke's look as a monster? The cane? The black and grays? The rubber snake? You know what, at least Plastique's not wearing a corset, but Where's the monster? Why are these girls afraid of looking ugly or creepy? Evie at least had an interesting concept, but like with her look in Farm to the Runway, it needs finishing touches to be good. So I know what you're thinking. But wait, if most of these looks are passable, why do you think there shouldn't have been a winner? Well, okay, instead of criticizing the rest of the cast and wondering if they had ever seen a horror movie, or if they have ever talked to a person that has, let me show you some of the looks that got it right. And if you ask me, were better than everything we've seen from the top 3. Nina West's witch and monster looks. Her witch look, while not being scary, is funny and campy while still being polished. And her monster look is an actual monster and it's fucking disgusting, so it's right on point. All 3 of Scarlet Envy's looks. Her first look literally looks like a sexy pirate costume that you would find for like 10 euros in your local costume store or whatever. Her witch look is a nice, smart take that's also somewhat creepy, I'll give her that. And her last look not only references an actual horror movie monster, not only is it creepy and well made, but it was also made in the workroom. So see what you could have done and you didn't at the rest of the queens. Hi, editing me here. Yes, I know that Raja's and Silky's looks were also witch looks, like actual witches, but one, they're too literal and not really Halloween-y scary at all, and 2, if you don't know the reference, which I assume most viewers of Drag Race didn't, especially the international fans, they just looked like, I don't know, a shiny Janet Jackson and a nice lady. Basically, what the show tried to sell us as the best was subpar given the whole horror/Halloween vibe of the episode, and they even went as far as not rewarding the queens that actually got the assignment right. As a fan of horror, this is what I personally tapped out on the season. But I genuinely don't think that you can try to debate me that this ball had anyone give 3 looks that all respond properly to the categories given and that are actually with the spirit of Halloween and horror. And that's it. That's the video. Nice way to finish, I'd say, given that we're nearing Halloween. As you have noticed, most of the spots on this list are challenges where queens present looks they have created or picked out for the show, because with those challenges, it's all on the queens and not the show. Knowing the show, it would never show itself as anything but good. And I've already mentioned why. Are there any challenges you think shouldn't have had winners? I'm not asking if there are any challenges where you disagree with the winner. I'm asking if there are any challenges where you think nobody did well enough across the board to have won the episode. Thank you for watching.